Good afternoon to all of our viewers and welcome to Anchor Pro Business. My name is Faizan and I'm the head of HR with Anchor based in Thailand in our Thailand office, and I will be our moderator for this session today. In the Pro Business event we're having today, it's based on a recent research that we conducted, which is related to attracting IT specialists in 2022. The research itself focuses on what candidates may be looking for, what companies are currently providing, what are the possible gaps in these areas, possible reasons for attrition for IT specialists, as well as what roles are in probably the most demand in the market currently. I am joined today by two very distinguished gentlemen from the HR fraternity within the IT sector, and they will be providing their own perspectives on the research data, as well as drawing some comparison based on some particular experiences. I have with me Kun Pakpom, who is the head of HR for Peak, and I have Kun Charlie, who is the head of talent acquisition for Sirius Technology. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and giving us your time and providing these valuable insights to all of our viewers. I'd like to ask Kun Pakpom to possibly give a few words about himself to our viewers, and followed by Kun Charlie, so we can then move on into the slides.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Park Poom. I'm head of HR at Peak Accounting. Based on my background, have experience in HR for like 10 plus years, and from energy sector, construction, hospitality, and right now in the IT industry.
Great,
Yes.
Thank you very much. Kun Charlie, please, if you will.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Charlie, currently head of talent acquisition at Sirius Technologies. Prior to this, I've been in the recruitment industry for almost 10 years, mainly touching within the fields of startups, tech companies, and innovative business units as well. Personally, I've also been a startup founder and also exited one. And I think now I'm part of Sirius to help take them to a unicorn status. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I'd like to thank you again for your time and in terms of providing these valuable insights. So I think without further ado, we can sort of move forwards towards the content of the research that we'll be showing today. First of all, we're sort of looking at the demographics that we had for this entire research. So as I mentioned, that we spoke to both IT specialists that are candidates as well as companies. And at this point, 458 IT specialists took part in the survey. And as you can see from the chart, 75% of them are currently employed within organizations, 17% were freelance, and 8% were currently unemployed. If we look at even the industries across where these individuals came from, predominantly 25% in information technology, followed by 18% for banking and financial services, 14% in e-commerce, 11% in automotive, 9% in consumer electronics, and so on and so forth down the list. We go with healthcare, hospitality, consulting, and telecommunications and media. When, of course, we look at what kind of professions, these candidates sort of came from. So if we look at software development, we have them on sort of system and business analysis, project management, design, development, QA. And when we talk about deployment, we're talking about deployment and DevOps. We're talking about system and network administration, infrastructure telecommunications, R&D in terms of data science, and then information and IT audit. And of course, the slide clearly displays the percentage of which were the sample size for our particular research. Moving forward. Apologies. 1 second, so sorry. There seems to be... Okay, apologies for that. It just kind of slipped out. Okay, great. Now, when we move forward to look at the companies, now there were 168 companies that took part in this survey. And as you can see, the particular industries. So for information technology, we're at 14%. For hospitality, there were 9%. Education, 9% again. Banking and financial services at 8%. Consumer goods at 6%. Automotive at 6%. Healthcare at 4%, and then other areas such as retail, oil and gas, e-commerce, consulting, home appliance and electronics, the chemical industry, telecom, mechanical engineering, construction, equipment machinery, and then agriculture as well. And as you can see, that 82% of these businesses are focused on attracting IT talent or IT specialists, while 76% of them are expecting IT volumes to grow over the next 2 years. I think an interesting thing to mention is that when we look at all industries across, whether it's consumer goods, technology, and other spaces, IT is growing at an exponential rate in terms of the talent that's required, because for the business of the future, of course, it lies in what kind of technology you have within the business. So moving forward, of course, this covers like all of the demographics that we were looking at in terms of the sample size. And if we move forward in terms of the actual data. So what we see here is first taken by our specialists or our particular candidates. What do IT specialists look for within a particular employer? And as you can see on the slide, certain bars are boldened a little bit and certain bars are in the gray. So this bolden sort of bar that you see is where the candidates or the responders had put either important or very important in terms of their priorities of what they're looking for. And here we have, of course, social package, right, which is roughly at 85%, career development, which is at 83%, stability or reliability of the company at 82%, the company's readiness to invest in IT at 82%, and the location of where the business is at 78%. On the other side, other let's say, responses that were also very important was participation in the development of innovative products and systems, fast selection and employment processes, participation in the project implementation from its beginning, professional education programs, as well as the result of the work is aimed at improving people's quality of life. So these are sort of the main areas or the importance, or the 10 points of major importance that were voiced out by the respondents on the candidate side. I'd like to take this, give the opportunity to Charlie to kind of weigh in on the information and how he feels about, how the data looks to him and what his experience has been. And of course, I'll call in Kun Pakpon right after. So Charlie, if you could give your point of view.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of pointers in here that all of us in HR or recruitment would be touching upon, right? But on a big picture overview, maybe I'll just walk through briefly on what candidates, at least right now, are saying or are asking. Maybe it's the same for some of you, maybe it's not. But the first few questions I have is, what can your company bring to the table in terms of my learning curve? That's the main one I get. Second is, I don't know why, I think this is a trend right now, remote or hybrid, right? And most of the time, they already have to answer, right? When I say it's hybrid, I give them a certain option, they're like, no, sorry, I only want remote. Sure. Right. So that's where also I think we come in, to be like, hey, we're actually operating in a hybrid model. This is why we need you to be there. We're currently on a startup, semi-scale-up model, things like that. And naturally, the third one, at least the top three that I see is, what can you offer me? Right. So most of the time when they come in through outbound, meaning we proactively search or receive from agencies like yours, really it's on this matter a lot. So it's just a very big overview, okay, on where the candidates are actually asking about right now. But we can go into more detail later, right? In terms of the package, sorry, I didn't expand on that. If they have offers already, then it becomes a matter of the soft versus the hard, right? Which is, of course, the social package that we talk about. It is still important, but in only 70% of candidates that I see, right? Surprisingly, around 30% come in through referrals or come in through a direct network or may have heard about my company, Sirius. Then it's much easier to sell or present the softer side of things, right? So these are the three big trends or maybe questions that I really get from at least my pool of IT recruiters. And just one final bit to set the landscape. When I joined the company, we had around 100 people. Right now, we're at 170, and we're looking for 80 more, right? Of which, if
Oh,
we
wow.
put it at 250 altogether, IT specialists would be at 200 out of 50.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun. But it's a lot of learning because candidates from my side, I see both local and international also because we're BOI registered. Right? So this is just my take on the overall.
Well, right, interesting. And I think that when we look at candidates that also obviously are coming from abroad, for instance, depending on which countries they're hailing from, I think that factor of what is important to those individuals might also be different in comparison to local candidates that you might be seeing. Do you see a stark difference?
Two answers to that. One is the excitement to relocate.
Okay.
Right? Which naturally, Thailand now is actually an upcoming market for expats. I
Sure.
have people from Singapore actually asking if they can move here. But unfortunately, sorry, your pay is way too high. I cannot match that social package. Right. And the other is they prefer full remote, like I said. Right. Compared to locals, they're a bit more flexible. Okay, if you need me in the office once every 2 weeks, it's okay. But for foreigners, sometimes they just prefer to be where they are or say, hey, why can't I work from Bali or Phuket, and not come in at all. But provide visa for the entire family to sit somewhere else in Thailand.
Oh,
So
that's
that obviously
interesting.
becomes a bit of an obstacle. Yeah.
And I figured this has probably ushered in even more, I think, given, the challenges I think that the world has been facing over the last 2 years. And it's really pushed that remote working agenda very strongly, going forward. I'd like to move over to Kun Pakpom. So, Kun Pakpom, what would you say, looking at the information, what is your view on it? And how has your experience been in terms of this factor, what employees are looking for?
Okay. Based on my experience, I totally agree with Charlie about top three that they are really looking for. But one surprisingly to me is the career development that IT specialists really looking for on this, because most like when we hire the IT specialist, we might wonder that they're just like individual contributor. They just like work at himself and work with the screen. But when the time pass by, they would like to see their career path and career ladders to see what's next for them. And also for the social package as well, like they might come from the freelancer before, so when they want to move to employer or the real corporate side, so they might concerned about what other benefits besides they receive besides the base package that they receive so far. Yeah.
Okay, so you would, of course, agree with Kun Charlie, and you do feel that those may be components depending on, of course, where the candidate is sort of coming from. Because I can understand that, of course, freelancers, it's more contractual, limited time frame, no specific long-term benefits, for example, Provident Fund and so on and so forth. And they're kind of able to jump between, different projects and different jobs. Okay, all right, that's fairly interesting. Okay, so if we were to sort of move ahead and look at what companies are currently providing to these particular employees. Now, what companies feel, and of course this is filled out by the organizations, that career development is one of the strongest things that they're providing at 88%. Working with high volume systems, 79%. Flexible hours at 77%. Working with modern technology stack, which is at 76, and additional bonuses at 74%. And of course, we have the other factors which were, I guess they deemed a little lesser in terms of importance of how they see of what they provide. So, Kun Pakpom, let's say we start with you at this point. So when you look at this data in terms of the company, being an employer yourself, how do you feel about the data, and what has been your experience in terms of that interaction?
From this, I think based on my experience, we provide almost like from top 5 that the companies really providing, from like career development, so the working flexible hours as well, and for the staff that they can work for, stuff like that. So um, from this data, I feel that from most of the tech companies, like they really provide them already. Yeah.
Aha, okay. Anything that you could comment maybe, because of course, different companies, depending on which companies are filled out, and as you've seen, the industries were quite a variety, so it wasn't only IT companies. But is there anything that you feel that maybe you do provide, but at least in terms of our sample size, has not been highlighted? So anything that you can think of out of the other points?
Okay, from this case, maybe about if I would like to add on from the additional bonuses about maybe the performance review that we are trying to increase the increase numbers of frequency in terms of performance review. So regularly we might need about like one time per year, but for peak we do provide like two performance reviews per year, so it can reflect in your base package. Yes.
Oh, no, of course, and I think that's great. I think a lot of companies are moving towards a more biannual sort of performance review system, because I guess it gives the opportunity to consistently provide feedback and obviously have the specific things that you might be looking for in development to also kind of be initiated. Okay, thank you very much. Kuncharli, same thing posed at you. That how do you feel about the data, and if there's anything that you would add in based on your experience, what would that be?
Okay, so based on the data, definitely a modern stack, which we obviously bring to the table. Being one of the fastest stealth companies right now out there, I won't go into too much details. That's already a draw. Additional bonuses, of course, but just 2 or 3 more things to add on. I'm not sure if it's 100% benefit, okay, sure. But because we're in the early stages and the fact that we're already almost break even in almost 2 years of operation and a lot of achievements and whatnot out there, right? It's the promise of something big. Right? It is part of a journey that most IT specialists actually enjoy, I feel. Being part of something that is on the uphill, right? What this means is that currently, okay, this is also another benefit, usually that draws local and international talents alike, is our team is a mix of locals and internationals from very well-known companies. And naturally, with our new modern stack with good people, it becomes a draw, right? When I say good people, it's not just me selling it to them. It's when they speak to their hiring managers that they're like, wow, this person actually has something, right? So maybe count as lucky because we may have a bit of more of a runway in terms of financials to play with. And maybe where we had very good referrals with very good tech people, and that has allowed an easier pool, for IT specialists. But one thing on the data is fast selection being the last. Surprisingly, this one actually comes up a lot in mine. How many rounds of interview? 3 rounds plus a test. That's too much. Now I'm going to go through my offers. ABC company offered me already. XYZ offered already. I'm not going to go through 2.5 rounds, right? Because of that, also I feel this is a major pull factor. Right, but I must say that pull factor for more mid to above average skilled candidates. Superstar candidates really is a lot on the first 2. I spent 4 to 5 hours negotiating with some of them, telling them about, where we're at, where we could be next, our management team, blah, blah, blah. A lot of the soft stuff pulls them in, right? So this is just my take, based off the data that yes, some of it, the top 2 is true, right? But there are also others that actually come into the picture. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'd like to focus a little bit on, your first point that you mentioned that was not there, which to me or translates to be strategic direction or the purpose of the business. And the direction where the business is going. I think that obviously people are much, much more aware about the future and, they want to be aligned with the business that's taking into account various technologies, but also the end goal of what the business is going to be. So that's a very interesting point, and thank you very much for sharing that. Furthermore, in terms of the faster selection process, now, interestingly enough, it's the last point, and you mentioned that in your experience, it's a major pull factor. Especially I think when we look at the challenge, even on the agency side, about locking in people and sending them to particular clients, I think it is a big challenge where you have multiple stages of interviews, different tests, different sorts of things. And to be honest, most of these very talented individuals, especially from let's say, a skill set that's not common. They'd have maybe 4 to 5 offers at any given point in time. So you're very right that why would they waste time through a very long, drawn-out interview process where they could possibly get a similar offer, if not better, more quickly from elsewhere. So great. Thank you very much for sharing that insight. If we move forward into just a comparison. So again, this is a slide that takes from both of the previous slides in terms of what people are looking for and obviously what companies are offering. And then you can sort of see a little bit here and there that there are some comparisons. Kun Pakpom, do you feel that this is sort of aligned in some way, or does your experience tell you that there is a little bit of misalignment between the sample size of the respondents from the candidates and the sample size from the companies?
Sorry. I think for this one is quite aligned between what IT specialists need and what companies offer from my perspective. I think like they need like more they need like more career development, as I mentioned earlier, about their career path and how they can grow in the company. And also what they are looking for is like more challenging in IT industry, that they need more like more things that can be there. It can show them as their masterpiece of solving the complexity of the problems. So I think this one may be another one that they can put on their profiles when they would like to move to the next career. Yeah.
How would you see the comparison? Because of course we discussed it individually, and now it's kind of like in front of you. Mm-hmm. When you can see the comparative. So what's your opinion on?
I think if we can in terms of job scope when they are in the company, so they might not want to solve the same kind of problem at all times. So they need more challenging of problems, and they can expand, or they can increase their experiences, and they can know that how to increase their technical knowledge as well as their managerial skills in order to solve the kind of problems. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kunparpo. Kunchadi, would you like to chime in and give your point of view?
Okay. What IT specialists look for? I agree with the top 5. Okay. But also I want to pull up once again the bottom one, additional bonuses. In this case, it's more of like, oh, you're offering a performance bonus of this much. What are the chances, or how flexible are you to go beyond that? Okay, this is a question I get asked a lot. Can we do more and actually get more? Of course, the answer for Sirius right now is yes, you can, but you need to come and talk to us, HR. You need to tell your hiring manager that you've done well, right? So we're trying to encourage a culture of speak up if you think you've done well. It's not corporate. We're not going to feed you evaluation. And this is what I think gets very interesting. In the past 1.5 years, quite a few internally have been given bonuses on projects that they've worked well on. And that's also a part of the retainment side of things that makes them want to stay on, right? Besides already, where we're offering an above market rate social package, that's true. Now, we have to also say that career development in a startup or tech company like us, it's not that easily defined. Sometimes, of course, in a bigger company, you go from junior to senior, senior to lead. Here, sometimes we have a lot of leads coming in as seniors, right? Mainly because our tech stack is very new. We're playing with a lot of new areas where, being a lead somewhere else does not mean you're a lead here. But back to the point. Definitely social package, definitely career development, but also I feel the additional bonuses along the way, usually once a year, I think that's enough to at least retain them, is important. Okay, and what we're offering is we always adjust every 2 months or 3 months based on the needs that we're seeing in the market, right? So for example, previously also, this is also another one is how many days off we get, right? This is more for seniors who are very good at what they do, IT specialists. Only 10 days of annual leave. Oh, but this place is giving me 20 more. Yep, because of that, I have more autonomy now to adjust that, for example, right? Or performance bonus. If you feel like we're offering you, say, 1 month is too low and you want us to guarantee at least a few months, if you think you can do well and pass probation, sure, right? So this is just my take on the overall data set that we've got going, in which I must say, yes, most of them are true. But the bonus part, to make them want to stay and to work hard and to contribute is something important.
Now, the interesting thing, I think, Concharlie, about where you're coming from, of course, you've had a comprehensive startup-based career as well. And of course, when we look at, startups and these edgy sort of companies coming in with very, non-conventional ideas. Now, for example, equity is also something that I've seen, based on my limited experience of working with a few startups, is always in the offering as well, where giving the person equity within the business, so they're more personally invested into the success of the organization. If I were to talk about, felt that this has been a good tool, or do you feel that this has had some unexpected consequences as well? How do you feel about
that? Straight up, it's been a very good tool. Okay. The only problem that I feel initially during my learning curve for other startup companies who offer stock options, when it comes to explaining this matter, it's not very clear to candidates, which makes them feel like this stock option doesn't have any value. It's just like, oh, okay, you're just giving me this much. Okay, I mean, I can get it anywhere. But with our company, we actually have like decks prepared, FAQs, what it means to give you this much, what it means if you leave at the end of 9 months, 24 months, what the value is now, what happens if we do not exit, literally a whole brochure, right? And that in its own right for higher caliber candidates is something very valuable that they're like, oh, this is very good. Wow, you're worth this much now. Oh, this is where I'm going next. So we don't have to talk too much, right? When you put everything on paper and let them read, it also filters them out in a way, right? And just to note one last thing is we do not give this to everyone. It's more on mid-senior and above, people who know that we really want them to stay for the long run.
So it's I think you seal in the retention in that sense, but not implied ownership, part ownership within the business. And I think that I would assume that it would be a scenario where these individuals that have been given, let's say, stock options, share options, and equity within the business will probably remain for the long haul rather than make any brash decisions and just kind of exit the company or, kind of lose faith in the business halfway around. So very interesting, because I think that's something that a lot of startups are doing. And I do believe it's been a good tool. Okay, great. Moving on to an interesting part, which is looking at attrition. Now, one thing that I would definitely like to mention here is that in the previous slides, we've actually seen as income, social benefit being higher, but income being not the most primary factor that candidates are looking for. And this is interesting because they may not be looking for income as the primary factor, but as you can see that from the candidate side, it is the top reason, right, for why they leave, which is the income level. So if I just, let's say, went through some of these points. So 58% is at income level. 50% is at lack of working flexibility. 46% lack of career development opportunities. 42% is bureaucracy within the company. 33% would be lack of regular training opportunities, because again, you're hitting on development. And then, of course, the location, which is, possibility of remote work at 27%, non-transparency of KPIs and bonus system at 25%, and so on and so forth. So if you look at this list, and let's say, Kunchali, let's say we can start with you. Attrition is a big thing, because it can be on various factors, such as it can be internal factors within the business, could be external circumstances as well, which are going on with the company, with the industry, and could even be personal factors for the candidate themselves. So when you look at this slide and when you look at this particular information, how do you find the data, and what's been your particular experience here? When we're looking at this information.
Okay. To touch on the first one, income level, we have very few, I must say, leaving because of income. We do have people who had come to us and say, I have an offer outside paying this much more. Sure. I'm sure all of us in the company now have companies approaching us with offers too, right? In which only half we do retention. The other half we let go, because we know that we're already paying and providing benefits that are above market rate. So if you want to go, there's no point in pulling you back. And also, according to research, at least my research and also HR director's research, is when you pull back somebody, half of them is already gone based on the money alone, right? If all they're talking and focusing on is the money, and we're already, at the upper middle level that we're providing in terms of benefits, and that's something we reevaluate and just, okay, if you want to go, you go, right? But one thing that is still the same is people leave because of their managers, okay? Because we have an international team, our hiring managers are international, naturally, we do have cultural clash. Okay, for example, the Europeans could be very straightforward, and a Thai new joiner could be like, oh my God, I'm not used to him saying my work is horrible, something along those lines. And I think it's a bit shaky, and then they leave. This one I understand, right? Which is why picking also the right person to join in at least the company culture we establish is also important, right? But one thing I have to admit that we may be a bit slow on, that's very important for IT specialists as well, is training opportunities. In the startup, naturally, everyone is running around, because there's so many things that are not organized. There's so many things that are still left on the table to do and figure out, let's put it that way, right? Because of that, HR, including myself, is also all over the place. And for training opportunities, like a corporate place to say, today, we're going to have training for you, it's not the case, right? So this one, a lot of times, is heavily dependent on the very busy hiring manager already, if they want to train up, some new joiners or people who want to upskill. It's hard, right? Which means two things. You have to do it on your own, where we provide a budget, right? Which we don't right now, or join a corporate where the work is less exciting, but you get training, right? This is what I tell my candidates. So if you want training, why not do it on your own, or observe or rotate around teams, right? So these are just a few things that I like to put up there. But the main thing I still see is people leave because of their managers, right? Training opportunities, not too much of a problem yet. And social package, yeah, occasionally, but few.
So I mean, it's interesting. I think it's probably one of the very common occurrences is your direct line manager. It's something I think that across industries, across companies, and to be quite frank with you, across countries as well, it's something that's quite a prevalent fact. And I think what's interesting is when you mentioned that when we look at international hiring managers or line managers versus your local employees and the culture sort of clash that happens. Any sort of ideas on, of course, I know that this is determined predominantly by the culture of the business. So depending on what kind of the culture the organization is trying to instill, whether it to be more international, open, direct, or be a little more conservative, I think that is a determining factor in how much or how less that kind of interaction happens. But how would you say would be an effective way that you've tried to meld that as much as possible? other than, of course, hiring the right people in terms of their personality, and those factors, what are other things you think companies could do to bridge the gap in those cases a little bit more?
Is this for me?
Yes.
Okay. So what I usually do, we actually have initiated random weekly coffee chats with myself, with individual candidates. It's a lot of work, but, just have a chat. That's one, to feel like there's a touch point that, hey, you're not forgotten after you've joined. Alternatively, usually at the start of onboarding day, I position, at least this is more an individual way I do things, is I position myself to be someone you can talk to. A lot of times people leave is because they feel like they have no one who understands them or their problems, right? And HR usually only takes exit interviews and, oh, you're leaving. Okay, tell me why. But usually that's already too late, right? So what's happening now is some people come up to me, mainly, to ask, but they don't say it directly. Ask, this is the issue going on now. What's next? Or, hey, I'm not sure about my career progression. What now? So what has brought or pulled people back is when you can sit down with them and walk them through their career plan options. Okay, this is something very personal because people are in career most of their time. An IT specialist, they're a bit different from marketing or people-centric nature positions, right? They need to be shown. Okay, sure, if you're not happy here, what is your plan? I just ask them that. And a lot of times they don't have a clear answer. They would say, I want to move company. Just get someone with better pay. Then I'm like, what is a good company to you? Anyway, besides all this is you need to touch their inner depth a little bit, This is your career plan. If it's money you want right now, like what we had a chat about, stay here for 2 more years and we can talk again. You just need someone like a mother, father figure to lay out the options, right? And because of that transparency that, we establish here, it makes people less impulsive to going because the money there is better. Okay, so this is just me sharing on that front. I hope that's understood a little bit.
Yeah, but it was a very insightful response. And I think you're very correct that at times, at least in my prior experience within human resources as well, and this is the time when I was business partnering for customer development or sales functions. And for example, when I went on my market visits, I went to my regional offices, met my territory managers, area sales managers, the regional sales manager of the consumer goods business that I was a part of. A lot of the times I have experienced in my HR career is that many times you can't solve the problems that people have. You don't have all the answers. You don't have the way forward, especially if you're out of function. But I think a lot of the times people are looking for that connection. They're looking for someone that they can speak to, a person that's not going to judge them based on the things that they say. These could be things that you can't talk to your supervisor about because you might fear that in the upcoming talent review or performance management cycle, it's something that could be held against you in some way. So whether it's something personal or something work related. And in my experience, I've seen that just giving that shoulder, to them, just giving them that shoulder to vent. At times, maybe they're just venting. They're not really even looking for an answer, but they're just looking for someone, for the lack of a better expression, used as a punching bag, at times. And I think that establishing that connection and that trust is also exceptionally important when it comes down to retention in particular, because I think if a person can have a conversation with me and can walk out a little less flustered or a little less concerned, even if I haven't solved the problem, because more often than not, business partners can't really solve business-related issues. So I think that a lot of the times that's what they're looking for. And I think that, clearly you've taken that approach of making that sort of one-on-one sort of conversation, walking them through their career, their aspirations, what they may be looking for. And like I said, in my experience, a lot of them, just want to vent at times. And they just want someone to listen to them, even if you can't solve their issues. So I completely agree, because that I'm speaking from complete personal experience as well. And you're very correct that I think that IT specialists, though, I have dealt with a few of them over the course of my career. Let's say my stakeholders were always more commercial functions, such as sales and marketing. They're definitely a different sort of personality that you come across. And I think that at times is important to also understand, because you can't approach an employee in the same sort of approach that you're using with everybody else. So I think it needs to be a little more specific in that case. So thank you very much. I think that was very insightful, and I could definitely relate to that in terms of my own career. Kun Prakpam, I'd like to move on to yourself. In terms of attrition, and how do you see the data, and what is your experience been? And I do understand you've worked with a diverse set of industries as well. So and I think that industry to industry, it's probably a little different as well. So please share your thoughts.
Of course. Based on your presenting data, I found that the one that I would like to talk about the perspective on why IT specialists left their current company to us. So one thing that is about their career that development rather than their income level. So sometimes they can discount themselves to they would like to work more in the workplace that can answer their career goals or their happiness in life. This is what I found. And also I would like to add from Kun Charlie's and Kun Faisan perspective about for HR people, we need to be as a partner of the employee to be to be more active listener rather than try to solve all kind of problems, because for IT guys, that they may have something that very technical or very depth to be understood. So in this case, I think you just be be a person that listen to their voice and trying to balance the needs of them with the culture of the company. Yeah. So I think this one will be one thing that IT specialists needs to they are looking for, besides the income, besides the career development, is also the culture in the company that they need to be enjoyed in the happy workplace.
Okay, thank you very much. Kun Parkpam, I would like to ask now. Of course, I know that you're coming from very different industries as well. So technology is, of course, an industry you're currently involved in, but you have worked in other sectors as well. Have you found that the reasoning for attrition in other sectors of IT are a little bit different than let's say technology companies such as the one that you're working with? Is there a major difference between the reasons? Have you experienced that?
Yes, I think for the corporate side, based on my experience, that I work in the corporate company that have only one IT department, and for peak, that the company that I'm working for right now is I have very big portion of the IT guys in the company. So the major difference is how you how to treat your employee. For peak, we need to very focus on these IT people, because they are the main mechanics to drive the company's growth. But for the based on my work experience about the company that has just heavily IT department in the company, so it's just they can be they are one of the supporting function, but I don't mean that we don't need to focus on them, but for the very IT savvy, so we need to focus more on them. Yes, in terms of their benefits, their well-being, stuff like that. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that I completely understand your point. When it comes down to in other organizations which are not purely technology centric,
Yes.
the focus, even on the headcounts, for instance, is very, very different. Even in my
Yes.
prior experiences, it's been a scenario where, of course, the technology or information technology department is a very important part of the structure. But again, it doesn't reflect it in terms of the headcount. A lot of the times, at least that's something that I've seen. But I think that now moving, if we talk about retail, if we talk about online shopping, if we talk about this entire movement, that, to be honest, prior to the challenges of the pandemic that came over 2 years ago, this was something that was already on the rise. With more and more people, trusting this aspect of let's say consumer purchasing behavior. So I think that even where companies previously, let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, didn't even ever think about having an online shop or let's say a catalog where you could select the things that you want. And as far as I've even seen cosmetic companies where you can sort of, upload your silhouette or a picture of yourself and then try different makeup application to see what it looks like before you actually make the purchase. Which, I mean, to me, 10 years ago would have been, I mean, it's unheard of, something like this.
Yeah.
But I think that now more and more companies are moving towards that retail bit, where, again, it comes into investment into technology and then growing headcounts in these areas. So, well, barring a few industries such as maybe energy and, let's say, fuels-based, which might be a little bit different. But if we talk about consumer goods, we talk about lifestyle, consumer electronics, a lot of these places, I mean, even something as entertainment, such as like movie studios, stuff like that. You're having a very, very big push into this e-commerce and retail, online retail section. So I think that we'll probably keep seeing this growing, and the importance of the technology departments in these companies, I think, is just on the rise. And I think this is, just the beginning of the journey. And I think it's all going to be quite automated and pretty much online most of the time.
Okay.
So thank you so much for your perspective.
But one more thing that I would like to add is about when I moved to the IT centric company. So I see some shortage of IT people in the market, and also see the very high competitive between every single company right now needs IT, like very potential and capable IT guys into the companies. So when they work in the corporate, maybe have only few headcounts on this, but when I move to the very IT company, so it is a big portion. So I see some red ocean in this kind of market. That's what I see.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your perspective and your insight. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, if we were to, let's say, move forward into the next section, which is currently looking at IT specialists in demand. So this is based on the data that companies have sort of provided us in terms of what areas that they're really looking to hire and what they essentially want. So if we look at deployment and DevOps, which is currently at 87%, and these are, of course, our IT professionals who work with software developers, system operators, and other production IT staff to oversee code releases and deployments. Then, of course, we have development itself at 85%, which are IT specialists who oversee writing the code and developing the software products. Mobile development at 78%, and these are specialists who are responsible for translating code into user-friendly applications. Then finally, QA, which are, again, specialists who are versed in different testing approaches, including automation, exploratory testing, and performance testing, etc. So, Pakpom, here I would like to chime over to you. In terms of these areas that you see at this point in time, so these particular, I would say, sub-functional roles within IT, what is your opinion about, of course, the requirements that you currently see at the moment? And are there any other specializations or areas where you feel that there is a demand that may not be present on the side?
I think this one is totally right from our, from our company perspective that we really want this kind of positions in IT, DevOps, backend developers, front-end developers, dev engineer, and also the software QA as well. So that's this really match with, with our needs from company's perspective. And besides that, I think should be like something that not maybe in advance about the mobile development in the future. But right now at peak that we are really hiring is that top three or top four positions
So
that you
these are
present.
sort of consistent with your current business's requirements at this point in time.
Right,
Kunparpang, is there
exactly.
any other role or any other sub-functional expertise which is maybe not mentioned here that you could basically share? Because of course, this is all coming from different companies. So it may be possible that you, in your experience, might be looking for something that's not actually on this slide. So is there anything else, or do you feel that these four are the consistent ones?
Okay, it might not that um heavily related to IT, but it's about the software consultant things that we
Oh,
need
okay.
to, some person can, can talk to tech and can consult to the customers. This one
Okay.
is one thing is about the software consultant, and also another one is about I would say like the community manager that can, that can bring what customer needs into, what company can provide and match them together. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'd like to ask one follow-up question, Kunparpang. And in this
Yes.
case, of course, I know that these are individuals that you're really looking for, and you're constantly, hunting for this
Mm-hmm.
talent. But if, let's say, you could put it in some kind of an order, which would be your most difficult areas of recruitment today? So which jobs or which sub-functional areas that you can see are the most difficult to hire for? Maybe in priority, most difficult to, let's say, least difficult. What would you say?
Based on my current experience, the most difficult one right now is QA.
Oh,
The
okay.
the list the fourth one, yeah, the QA. Because right now for QA, like I think we have quite a lot in terms of like QA tester, like in the junior and senior level. But if we would like to, add more senior level on that, like QA team lead or QA manager, I think in the market, from my perspective, is quite rare to find the candidates.
Okay. And what would be the more easier one that you've had? Maybe it's an easier success ratio out of these four. If QA is probably the most
How,
difficult, what would be a slightly
yes,
easier one?
the easier may be like back end dev, the back end dev, and also the front end dev tester, because because the requirement of the company is not that in the first management level or middle management level yet.
Sure.
So that's why is, we have quite numbers in the market to seek for. Yeah.
All right.
Because
Interesting.
I think from my perspective, if the IT specialist live up into the middle management level, I think that numbers of them drop dramatically in the market. So I think we need to, find the right person on that.
And I believe that in a lot of the cases, and of course, especially when you look at Thailand, and of course, when I have discussions within our own technology team, it's fairly difficult to find these people. And again, I think the problem really comes down to is that not finding the person, but the fact that the individual has so many choices of so many
Yes.
different businesses, and at any given time, you might have 4 to 5 offers just lying around. So it's difficult to be able to convince an individual to join any particular company, whether it's for
Right.
us on the agency side, or it's even yourselves are trying to attract talent individually
Mhm.
through your own talent acquisition specialists. So understand. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Conchardi, please, if you could please give us your perspective on for example, these jobs, as well as what your opinion on difficulty of hiring also is, similar to how I posed the question previously.
Okay. Yes, of course, to all of them. But the one that I feel would be a challenge, I wouldn't say difficult, but a challenge would be more on the programmer, the second point. So that one, I find it a bit more difficult due to the current nature of probably my business, right? Where the tech hiring managers, come from very stringent backgrounds. They really know their stuff. And also our interview process is only 1 or 2 rounds, which means it's very fast, but harsh. Okay. Now it's going to I would have to maybe position that question in more, do I need to fill the headcount or do I need quality? Right now it's both, but we're leaning towards quality. So if it's based on quality alone, yes, I've had plenty of applications, but success rate is probably 5 or 10% right now, right? Besides Anchor, of course, which we've closed many positions with, actually in the past 5 months that I've been here. I think we're close to 10 or 15 now, which is quite a lot of senior positions too, in a good way. But besides that, QA, yeah, POs, PMs, BAs, yeah. But like I said, my heart is really with the development part, because this is something you cannot have a conversation and figure out if they're good or bad, right? For the others, maybe you can ask questions that are a bit more specific. But in terms of the backend, at least from what I've been observing, is sometimes when they do well in the interview, the test is actually horrible. All right. So after we implemented the test, sorry?
No, I said, oh, wow. That's an interesting, an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah. So after we implemented the test, it's much easier and quicker for us. Yes, it's a bit more expensive because it's quite a few dollars per person, but also saves everyone a lot of time, right? Including myself. I don't have to go through screening unnecessarily. So I think this is something that I feel would be a very good way to also see if this candidate is willing to put in effort, just a little bit. I'm saying just 10 questions. Come on, to go through with that. And then if they're good in the test, then we interview them. Right. So this is how I position us right now, at least for the developers. Right. In terms of QA and the other positions, it's still 1 or 2 rounds of interview. That one, we haven't had too much of a problem so far. Right. But rather in difficulty in really defining what these candidates are coming in to do. Right. Because when you hire IT or technical people, they are technical people. Sometimes the job description does not do it justice. Sometimes the job description only shows so much and has not reflected the change in the projects that they may be doing, right? And because of that, it also affects the difficulty, or maybe, like when they ask, what am I going to be working on? Oh, actually it was this, but then now it's this, but also a bit of this. So it's that part also plays a little effect, on the difficulty in really finding a more quality candidate.
Okay, great. I have one follow-up question for you, Charlie. Now, of course, you mentioned in the case of the developers, of course, you've observed that there's a scenario where you have, of course, the testing aspect, and then you have, of course, the interviewing aspect. Now, I'd like to pose a little bit of a hypothetical situation for you. If we look at, let's say 2 scenarios or 2 particular candidates, where, one, of course, the capability in terms of the coding or the programming is exceptional. But of course, in the interview process, the individual doesn't really come out in terms of that maybe cultural fit, or maybe is just not the sort of personality that, presents well, that is able to highlight the capability that the person actually has. Versus, let's say, an individual B who, let's say, is able to present very well, is very articulate in terms of what they can do and what value they can add. But let's say the test score, I would not say is a failure, but maybe not up to the exact mark that you're looking for. And I know you mentioned quality as something that, is very important. So in terms of, let's say, candidate A and candidate B, which are obviously stark, it's a paradoxical situation with the two. What would be your decision in terms of the choosing or the selection criteria between the two?
Immediately, at least for myself and hiring managers, we'd cross out A. Right. We've had a few superstar candidates with horrible attitude or red flags. And, the nature of a tech company is it's fast. We don't want to be managing someone who's, with a bad attitude, anger management, unsure. It's more of a headache in the long run, despite your delivery. Okay. So for the second one, we do give a leeway, but more for junior to mid-level candidates. The moment you're mid and above, we expect a certain degree of professionalism, right? So that's my answer straight up to you, that A would stand no chance. And it's something that we need to nip it in the bud, that we've all aligned on, that this person must be able to, have chemistry with you, right? And get along with people. You may be an introvert, but don't show any kind of red flags. And it's quite obvious. You'd be surprised. A lot of red flags along the way, like complaints or like, dropping out halfway through the interview, just hang up. I don't know, like so many ways to pinpoint that, despite a very good test result. We don't want that too.
No, but that's quite interesting because, even if you look at a lot of, let's say, some of the blue chip businesses and, you look at their, let's say, management training program. That's a pretty good example where you have a very defined assessment process from the point that you start, where you do the initial, let's say, application exam or test, moving into, let's say, interviews, then moving into like panel discussions and case studies. So usually for the MTs or the management trainees or, graduate trainees, they're very comprehensive processes put in place where different levels or different line managers within the organizations are consistently involved all the way up to the top. But it's quite funny that sometimes you actually realize that people do fool the system, that they can manipulate the scenario in such a way where they project themselves as something different, or through the testing or the behavioral interviews or different kinds of modes of assessment, they're able to kind of squirm around that system and come into the organization. But when they actually land up in the job, you're kind of a little bewildered because you're thinking that, the tests, the assessments, they say something different. But on ground, the individual is actually very, very different. So I think that at certain times, even testing, as much as whether it's behavioral, whether it's looking at the individual in, let's say, group instances, case studies, analytical stuff, at times it's difficult to judge. And I think hiring with the best assessments and selection criteria is always, I feel, to a certain degree, a gamble, because you don't know, how genuine the individual is. Because of course, anyone's going to come into an interview and say, "Yes, I'm a fast learner. Yes, I work very hard. Yes, I'm in here for the long run." These are your most common phrases you'll hear from all candidates across all industries. But it's interesting that I think that in the case of your particular organization, I think, of course, that attitude and that alignment within the business is much more important, because skills, I think, in certain cases you can teach, right? You can develop skills to a certain degree to reach that, let's say, productive excellence that you may be looking for. But attitudes are seldom changed in that particular way. I'd also like to point out, thank you very much for your appreciation of the tech team. I think they've had a great deal of success, and I think they really enjoy working with your organization as well. So thank you very much for that shout out. Now moving forward, of course, now this is predominantly the data that we had to share and what we had to talk about. So we're making a little bit too good on time, if there is such a thing. But now, of course, we have a segment for Q&A as well. So we've had numerous questions that have come from different viewers, and some pre-made questions as well, where we would, of course, be then asking you guys to kind of give your opinions on. So we can sort of move on in that direction. Could we have the question? Okay. As an IT technician, a remote working model is very important these days. What is your opinion as HR? Do you think this is something that will be in the long run effect after COVID? And this was a question that came from YouTube. Whichever one of you would like to take it up first, we can go however you guys.
Kun Paku, would you?
What's the question again? Sorry.
So sure, no problem. In a nutshell, as an IT technician, remote working is very important these days. So as HR, do you think that this is something that is going to be completely long-term, even after COVID is completely gone?
From HR perspective, I think it depends on the productivity that you create. So as long as you can, you can create your productivity, or you have some effective work that you deliver to the company. So I think for the physical place or physical office, that's not that necessary in the as a one atmosphere to encourage you to work. But at least I think you have to have some physical office, but no need to have to be very extravagant office physical office to work for. But if you can, at wherever you are, and you can, create some work, and as you commit to the company, so it's fine.
Okay, and do you think this is something that the companies will continue to do going forward as a general, normal sort of model of work?
I think at least until end of this year.
End of this year.
Yeah.
Because we have seen a few businesses, in the larger scope in the United States, for instance. I won't, of course, take the name of the business that is actually now sort of, saying that, yeah, guys, now it's time to come back.
It's time to come back, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to come back. So a few businesses have a slightly different approach. So, Charlie, how do you feel about the longevity of the remote working situation?
For us, it's the complete opposite. You have to understand that we're now in a very fast developing, technologically advanced world.
Sure.
Right. And if we could go through COVID with all the tools, right now to help get things done, at Sirius itself, we're already planning that remote work as a solution will be in place for the long run.
For the long run.
And this is something that we want to pilot to be in a time zone no more than 4 hours difference, right? So time zone is important because of the daily stand-ups and whatnot. That's the only thing we require right now for remote, which there's plenty. India is 4 hours, China as well. We have a team in China. So because of that, and the system we have in place, for someone who can, manage the team, it's definitely something doable, right? And taking back to our point just now, is IT specialists or people in this industry, they're not necessarily people facing, right? So the world now is not more on the companies choosing the candidates. Don't forget that, the candidates choose the company, right? So how do we make sure that we can last long in the game and be competitive so that, they still want to work for us? And this is something to also add is we do have a few remote right now. And after a few months, they're like, hey, I now want to relocate. I like the team. And we're like, yeah, hell yeah, come, join part of the culture. And that's also something that I've seen work, so just feed them some little appetizer first and they see like, oh, I like the whole dinner table now. Then they'll come for the mains, right? So this is also something for the long run, I feel that would definitely be in place, not just for Sirius, but for other, companies as well.
Thank you so much. I think it's fairly important. I think a few businesses, even prior to, of course, the pandemic and all of these things, were, playing around with the idea of agile working, agile workspaces. So a few individuals I personally know, I believe I was back in Pakistan at the time, where the individual sort of, he had moved over to Singapore, and I see him in the HR department. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, oh yeah, I'm working agile. I was like, you're working agile across countries? He's like, yes, why not? He's like, if I can deliver, what difference does it make where I'm physically present? So, some companies started to adopt this earlier, but I think definitely the current scenario that we have faced has definitely pushed everyone into that perspective. And because I guess it was the only way to sort of survive in those circumstances. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for your input. This is another question that we have from YouTube. How to attract devs when you are not a tech company and your team is small? So, Kunchali, maybe you can take this up first, and then I can come to Kunpak.
Okay. There are many ways to answer that question, right? Small or large, everyone has something that they can play with or sell, right? Hence, you have this saying that once you know how to sell, you're set for life. Anyway, back to the point. Branding nowadays, it depends on who you're trying to lure, right? If you're looking at Gen Z, some millennials, definitely branding is important. If you're looking at more seniors, then maybe something like stability and vision could be more important, right? So maybe a little bit off topic on this side is I do have, been, recruiting for smaller companies in tech before, and a lot of times it comes down to personal branding, right? The CEO himself steps into the interview, for example, or they have some kind of Instagram account or TikTok account that people can relate to, for more authenticity, right? Point is, if you're small, you need to think different. Okay, how do you stand out by not doing the same thing? If 10 small companies all posted on Jobs TV, 10 small companies all posted on the same Facebook group, what's the difference? So you got to really find an alternative solution to get people to know of your company out there, right? I've had people who had like micro-influencer tactics, indirectly selling the company. I've had CEOs with TikTok, TikTok profiles, rather famous, with the website linked to that. I've had companies where they, talk to so if you say a small team of 5 or 6 people, spread the word, friends and family, anyone who's a junior, anyone in university, can you help spread the word? We're going to give you an internal referral fee. Just so many ways, I'm just saying, right? So this is my take on small companies wanting to offer that, despite I know the next question could be, but our salary bracket is not very high, right? So what do you have to bring to the table now and in the future, right? Most people want to work with a smart team or CEO or the management team who's very forward thinking. That could be already something that a lot of times I realize smaller companies do not show. They just say, okay, we're a new startup, we're looking for this person. And then what? We're going to offer you flexible working. Then what? It's almost hitting the point, but it's not there yet. I don't know if you get this part, but it's almost there, but it's not there yet. So this is just my take, like my feedback on smaller companies trying to fight for tech talents.
Okay, thank you so much, Kunchali. Kunpakpum, how would you gauge this question?
From my perspective, I think you have to do some proactive approach to the candidates, not just sit in the company and post job posting and in all areas, but you need to be more proactive in order to seek for what candidates are in, like where are they in the market. You need to build some maybe like short and long-term relationship with them. For example, you can go to the roadshow, to the campus, to the senior students. Maybe you can have that quite this along the same answer as Charlie about branding as well. So you need to build yourself as you have to uniquely yourself, like who you are and why candidates need to get some interested in you. That's what I would like to point out on this. So you need to be like more active approach and trying to uniquely yourself from other players in the market.
Okay, thank you. In your opinion, Kunpakpum, is for example doing like campus drives and like university activations and kind of maybe even providing internship possible opportunities. Have you found those to be effective tools in Thailand?
Yes, I think it's effective, but not not today or tomorrow, but it is effective in the long run,
in
in
the
the
long
long
run?
run. So that you know when they yeah they can when you present your company in the campus, so they know your brands, they know who you are, and they can be like if you can hire some talents from this campus, so it can be like word of mouth that you can if you hire the right people and they feel happy to work with us. So I think like this one can be the one mag magnet to to get the very potential talents into your company. But as I mentioned, it's not happen for today or tomorrow. When you visit campus today, like it doesn't mean like tomorrow you're gonna get the right the people into your company, but you know it's a long run approach that it will be effective to your company.
Oh, thank you. I believe that's very true. I think a long-term brand equity takes a lot of time.
Mm.
And I think
Yes.
oftentimes when HR, specifically in terms of employer branding, or let's say these kind of activities want to do things, at times it can be a difficult sell within the organization because there's no immediate outcome. So,
Yes.
the biggest question would be, you want to put this much money behind this, but you're not getting anything
Mm-hmm.
out of it. So I think it's when it comes down to, assessing budgets for these sorts of things, I can understand it's a challenging thing for all
Yes.
organizations and for HR especially, to, sort of push that agenda that, no, we need to do this. There will be a future benefit, but at times it's a difficult sell. So I understand that as well. The next question I would like to move to is, and this is again from our YouTube channel, which kind of particular core value that you will expect to get from your future IT specialists, employees, beside regular qualification criteria? So more in-depth insight, not only just coverage. So in terms of values, Kunchali, I'd like you to sort of take this one on. So from a value proposition or an internal sort of competency or value, what do you think? I mean, from the future, what kind of values are you looking at? What would be priorities for in your opinion?
You mean personal values from
Yeah.
potential candidates?
Yes. So other than the regular, general criteria such as education or experience, from a value base, what do you think?
Mhm. Ownership, if that's a value.
Ownership?
I mean that's common, right? In the tech world, everyone already has that. But I think there's one more. I'm trying to get to it. Just to define ownership first, is more of a value that one needs to take pride and respect in himself. Maybe this overlaps with integrity. This is something that is harder to find these days, at least in the market. From what I see, is a lot of times they expect it to be fed to them, right? So this is the difference between maybe someone from corporate and someone from startup. Like I said earlier, right? The proactive approach, sense of ownership. These are very startup qualities, or I say values, in people wanting to join at least the tech or even companies these days. They always say we're looking for someone with startup mentality, right? That in a way it's a value, but you define that as a value, there's probably 10 around it. So maybe in the 10, I'd say ownership and integrity is important. And the other one is, I feel that, we're trying to strongly encourage is, I don't know what value is around this, but more like speak up. What do you call it? Direct communication, right? In orientation or with candidates, I tell them we're clearly defined as a very straightforward organization, right? We're not perfect, but if you keep quiet, no one's going to help you. And if you're going to go, don't make the wrong decision, right? So a value that's around straight up, come talk to us. And it's been working. The people that have been coming in, the hiring managers, they're all so straightforward. I love it. So this is something that I feel it's important for at least our future candidates and current candidates to be able to take constructive criticism and not take it personally. Yeah.
Very interesting, because I think that both of the things that you mentioned are actually even interconnected, because accountability and ownership comes from the fact that, of course, that you have a person that really deeply cares about what they do. And again, if you deeply care about what you do, if there is, let's say, some form of I wouldn't want to use the word injustice, but let's say there's something happens within the organization that you fundamentally disagree with, for instance, or it's an opinion that you'd want to give to do something better, but due to some of the cultural elements, you may not want to. So again, it stems from accountability and ownership that you will speak up, that you will fight for your perspective, that you put your point forward. And I think that that's something that I think Sirius Technologies is benefiting from and thriving because I think you're looking for people with those elements in their personality that would be able to drive this agenda even forward. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that comment. Kun Pakpum, how would you say in terms of the values, what kind of values would you be expecting from IT specialists in the future?
Okay, I would like to add more, like two more from Kun Charlie that mentioned about the integrity and about the direct communication. I want to add more on the people-centric things that they need to, for IT guys, like they need, they not just only work on the screen, on the solve program things, they need to work with people as well. So I need to put this one on as one with a people-centric approach. When you design thing or when you trying to create your work, so you have to, just like not that only you work with AI, but you work with the real human beings as well. Another one I would like to add on is not only the people-centric that we need to focus on, you need to have people-centric with your empathy as well. You have to put yourself on their shoes. Like if you were them, so what do you really need from this kind of problems that they would like you to solve, or that you would like to that they would like you to figure out? And also another thing I would like to add on thing is about that leadership. It's not only you have to lead the team, but you have to have something like self leadership as well. So when you work on your own, you have to it's like what Kun Charlie just mentioned, but you need to speak up. If you don't speak up, so no one knows what you are thinking about, or what you are thinking of. So you have to have self leadership, and also you can step up into the next level. Not just only you are very expertise on your field, but you can also be the IT that you can manage people as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very, very much. So the next question is, IT is a very individual job. Sometimes we work alone. What does your company do to make IT staff feel part of the company and don't feel alienated? This is again coming from our YouTube channel. Kun Charlie, how would you like to address this question?
Being a very new company, and I've been here 6 months, where the average employee is around 3 or 4 months, right? There hasn't been any kind of bonding yet, right? So backed by research, I think a lot of times people want to stay because they found a buddy in the same team of the company, right? And we're trying to create that. So it's really not the ping pong table. It's really not the massive parties or whatever, right? So this is a strategy I'm going to try out is rotating champions, right? So a sense of ownership, again, that's a value also I put from the very start is all of you would have a chance and a budget given to create something that get people to come and attend, right? And with this in mind, the IT people, I've seen coffee clubs already. I've seen board games that's typical around 5-6 p.m. They stay back and play. We've had basketball. We're gonna have poker, bokdeng, like baccarat, things that are a bit unconventional that we can do at around 4:30 p.m. any day, right? So we're not gonna become a corporate that says you cannot do anything out of your work that is before 6 p.m. We're just like, you want to just take a break, just go. We have also IT people here who hang out. They leave the office around 3:30. They're like, I'm so tired for today. Let's go have like a late lunch. Go. We don't have any strict policy to say you cannot go. You need to stay here. At least if you come 10 to 5, you have to be right. So this is, I feel, something that is I cannot do everything, right? So I just put it onto the people to be like, okay, you lead this then. You lead this then. How much do you need? This is how much you're getting. and see what happens. And already it's happening. So it's good news, I hope. I don't know what the end result is yet. It's still very early, but let's see what happens. Relationships are the keyword.
Yeah, I think it's for focusing on creating that inclusive environment. I think that's a factor. And I think, of course, having the infrastructure of activities and the facilities there for people to kind of bring them together. I believe that's what your focus, sort of is. Kun Pakpum, how would you feel about the same question, that how do you, bring the IT people together?
Just one simple things that we can do is just trying to make them feel as a club when they are in the school. It's like when you bring all people that have the same common interest, same common interest, bring them together and make them feel as a club. But we have some project that they need to achieve together. So this one can be one thing that can make them feel like they are not aliens to, there's only one group of people in the company that, talk in some IT languages that not everyone understands. And also we have some at Peak, we have like every Friday evening, we have like knowledge exchange session that, for everyone in the company can exchange their knowledge, or not only the knowledge that they very expert on. They can bring some knowledge that can be hot issue that they think that is very beneficial to every colleagues. Yeah, so that's one trying to blend between IT team and other departments in the company.
Okay, great. Thank you very, very much. I do believe that is the end of the questions that were there. So we're pretty much wrapping up the event right now. So I would like to take this opportunity to very sincerely thank both Kun Charlie and Kun Papum for giving up their very valuable time and busy day to join us in this pro business session today and share some very valuable insights, whether it's, of course, drawing up comparisons within our own data set, or even, providing a very personal experience that they've shared. So, I would like to thank you on behalf of Angkor for being here and participating with us on this particular area. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Krab. Thank you as well.
Yeah. And what I would also like to do is thank, obviously, our viewers with some great questions where, again, we were able to, talk about some different topics and different hot issues that certain people within the IT space are looking at. So with this, I would like to close the session. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and stay safe.